there, beautiful people. I'm Emmy, and welcome back to another episode of Paint Chronicles. So last week I left off telling you the story of how Steve and I kind of met and were introduced to each other, but there's a little bit more that I kind of wanted to expand upon because I find it kind of interesting, at least. Tell me if I'm wrong. Or don't. So he had invited me down to his apartment about 2 hours away from where I had lived on the pretense of, I've got this movie that you need to see and I own it, so you should just come down and hang out and maybe stay the night. It'd be fun. So I really didn't know what to expect or what he expected from me, but I was like, you know what? If nothing else, this sounds like a fun time. It may be nothing more than just hanging out as friends. I don't know how he actually feels about me, so we're just gonna go down there and find out, right? I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and I think it's pretty safe to say that every single one of them, including my parents, were probably pretty nervous about me heading down 2 hours away from home to meet up with a guy that I barely knew. But I was like, meh, it'll be okay. So it's worth noting that on the drive to his apartment, I did not have Google Maps on my very crappy phone. So I'd done the classic look up the directions on Google Maps on your home computer, print out the directions, and tape them to your dashboard. I can't tell you how many times I've done that in the past. Like, seriously, guys, the struggle was real. So on my way down to meet him, I ended up actually getting a little bit lost. Something was wrong in Google Maps where they had changed exits in real time, but not on maps, so it had no idea, and it gave me the wrong exit number. And so I ended up driving slightly into the city, and I was very confused and very lost and a little bit scared. I ended up stopping at a gas station and getting directions to the freeway that I needed to get to from this very, very kind Indian man. And once he pointed me in the right direction, I was able to kind of figure out a little bit better where I was in the directions that were printed out on my dashboard. But soon I got lost again. This is noteworthy because I never get lost. Like, seriously, I have a pretty decent sense of direction, and it takes a lot to get me turned around. But at that point in time, I think I was so nervous about meeting up with Steve that I kind of let it get to my head and ended up getting myself really fucking turned around. So I ended up doing the little help guy maneuver, and I called him. And I was like, hey man, so I'm so sorry, but I am like super lost and I can't figure out how to get to your apartment. He was real cool about it. He was like, oh, tell me where you are. Oh, you're there? Okay, well, all you have to do is take this road, and then if you get onto this road, then blah, blah, blah. So I get to the complex, put in this code, I get inside, and maybe my memory is just like salty by this point, but I just remember building after building after building and almost no signage of where to go in order to be at his place. Miraculously, I called him again, letting him know I was at the complex but had no idea which building was his. He tried to tell me what his car was so that I could find him a little bit easier. Alas, I do not know cars very well. He came outside of his apartment and stood there waiting for me. I finally spotted him. So I get inside and we kind of get past like those initial very awkward, very shy conversation starters. And then it seemed like the conversation really started flowing. We had so much in common, it really wasn't hard to pull from previous conversations that we'd had on Messenger to talk about things that we were really interested in and to really find some common ground and enjoy the conversation with each other. As we're talking, he starts making one of my favorite meals in the whole world, chicken fettuccine alfredo. Oh my god, seriously, I could eat that for days. And I was like, oh my god, this guy is like, seriously, okay. I've never had a guy cook for me before, so this was a whole new experience for me. All of a sudden, I look over and I see him doing something that is one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen done to this meal. He puts mushrooms in the Alfredo, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no. I hate mushrooms. We're talking and the conversation kind of comes to a natural lull. And like, I knew things were gonna be great with him when there's like a moment of silence and all of a sudden he's like, so, do you like speak any other languages? What? Such an outrageous question. So out of the blue. He hands me a bowl of this chicken fettuccine alfredo that's been bastardized with mushrooms, and I don't like to be rude, but I'm also a very picky eater. So I take the bowl and I'm like, cool, thank you, I really appreciate it. And like just trying to be really sweet and nice and accepting of the fact that he just worked really hard to make me this meal. We sit down and we watch the movie, which seriously guys, if you have not seen The Living Wake, please watch it. It is so good. His dog Cleo, he had just rescued her off of the streets. She was skin and bone when he got her, and within like a couple of weeks she was a healthy weight. She was beautiful, pretty well behaved, and very lovey. Oh, she loved the cuddles. After the movie, we decide, let's watch another movie because we're movie lovers, let's do it. And I had brought with me my CD case of movies that I keep so that I don't have to worry about dragging DVD cases around with me everywhere. And we both reach for it at the same time and our hands touch, and like there was this moment of, ugh. And we both pull our hands back and just kind of like avert our gazes from each other. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So this is definitely just a friend thing. He doesn't want anything more than that. That's cool. All right, I at least know where we stand. That's great. We'll move on from here. Of course, I didn't know at the time that when that happened, he was just very nervous. Bless his little heart. So we put in the movie Ender's Game. We both love sci-fi. Also, those stories are fantastic. So we're watching that movie and Cleo jumps on the couch and gets in between us, which becomes a very like normal thing for her eventually. And he starts petting her. I start petting her head. And we're just kind of sitting there watching the movie, and it was a little Lady and the Tramp style where like all of a sudden our hands were touching. I felt this like crazy like sensation go from my head to my toes where I was like all of a sudden so nervous. And when I didn't flinch, his hand kind of just wrapped around mine naturally, and all of a sudden we're sitting there holding hands on top of his dog. Sounds like a weird fetish. We sat there like that for a while and I was like, oh my goodness, I guess I was wrong. Maybe he apparently thinks we're more than friends. I think we ended up, if memory serves me correctly here, I think we ended up watching another movie. I started doing a classic Emmy thing where I fell asleep on the couch. Even as excited as I was to be there and how much fun I was having, I just sleep. I surrendered. At one point, I woke up and he's looking at me and he's like, do you want to lay down in the bed? And I was like, yeah, I guess it's getting kind of late. And so I get up and I'm standing there 4 feet from his bed because there were probably 10 feet total in that apartment. Very small studio apartment. And it was really awkward all of a sudden again because I didn't have a clue what to do. Again, reaching that point of I don't know what he expects from me. I don't really want to like do anything to compromise myself. So I just simply look at him and say, I've never really done this before. To which he looks at me and without missing a beat, he says, you've never slept in a bed before? I'm telling you guys, that just fixed everything. It was perfect. It was the perfect thing to say to me. I burst out laughing and I felt so much more comfortable then. We laid down in the bed and I am happy to report that he was a perfect gentleman. He didn't have any expectations from me that night. He just laid there next to me making wisecracks and making me laugh. I remember we were up till like 4 something in the morning and just that whole time I laughed so hard at him and my stomach hurt, like my muscles felt atrophied. They were just dying inside of me. And it was so fun. It was such a magical night. I remember leaving the next morning and being very sad that I had to go. Again, there is so much more to the story, and I will continue telling you about my life as I continue making these pictures. So let's just talk for a minute here real quick about this piece that I did, Miss Dappled Dame. I had a really good time making this one, experimenting with the eye color a little bit. The hair color was a little bit different from what I usually tend to lean towards. The background was sort of interesting to do. I ended up adding in some splashes of blue later after I had taken the border tape off because it just didn't look quite finished to me. The funniest part about this piece is it kind of ended up looking like a friend of mine inadvertently. I had found a picture online of a person and just kind of used it as a reference just to get proportions and everything sort of exactly where I wanted them to be, but it looks nothing like that reference photo. Not to mention that reference photo wasn't the photo of my friend, but about halfway through the piece I was like, sort of looks like somebody I know. But I think she's beautiful and I think she turned out really nice. So please don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell if you want to see more notifications when I put stuff out. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Emmy's Art Stuff. I have another video coming out next Wednesday, so until next time, stay creative.